Hey everyone, welcome to Mountain Beast Mysteries. In today's video, I sit down and talk with Ben from 401 Files. We talk about things such as Bigfoot, my Bigfoot expeditions, my latest expedition and film, and a really cool video he did where he actually visited the Rendlesham Forest base, where the famous Rendlesham Forest incident occurred back in the early 80s. It's one of the most incredible UFO stories that there is. So I really hope you guys enjoy the video. It's a pretty long conversation. If you haven't checked out Ben's channel 401 Files, I highly recommend doing that. There's a link down below in the description to the video where he visits the Rendlesham Forest. Make sure you subscribe to his channel. He's got a lot of great content where he talks about thought-provoking topics such as Bigfoot, UFOs, and other strange things. But he also goes out into the woods a lot and does a lot of wild camping and bushcraft. So check out his channel, and if you haven't already on my channel, hit the bell icon to get notified for new Mountain Beast Mysteries videos. Because when I upload something and you don't have the notifications turned on, you're not going to know about it. But anyways, let's get into it here.
Guys, we are finally at the location where we will be spending the next 2 days and sleeping over tonight as well, so we have to be super stealthy because you're not allowed to camp in this forest at all, and I'm sure that it's patrolled. But me and Junior are stealthy, we're sneaky, and we will slip through any kind of security that's put before us. It's been a long drive. It took us 4 and a bit hours. We took a 12-mile detour unnecessarily. However, Junior will tell you different. He'll say that it was completely necessary. Anyway, we're here, and I think it's clearly obvious where we are now. If not, we are at the one and only, the notorious Rendlesham Forest. This is the UK, or Britain's Roswell. This is a massive place in UFO history. A lot of things took place here in 1980, a huge year again for ufology.
So how long have you been back off your last trip? The the Beast in the not Beast of the North, is it? Beast of the North, is that right?
I was filming that the end of September.
Wow.
So I think I was out there on like the 23rd, 22nd, 23rd of September or something like that. So it's been over a month.
How long was it? How long was you out there for?
Only a few days, like 4 days, 3 nights.
Which is really good though, because you only had your rucksack with you, didn't you, on that trip? So 3 or 4 days is pretty good going.
I wanted to be out there for a week on that trip. That was the plan, but I realized once I was done the hike that I didn't bring enough food.
Did you just dry pack all your food? Is it kind of like noodles and just dry packed food into freezer bags, that kind of thing?
I brought like dehydrated meals that I got at the store.
What are you going to do when it comes to like going out on a full week or 2-week expedition? Because like it's going to be a nightmare trying to carry all that food and equipment in your rucksack.
I know that's the problem, is that like I was doing that trip to kind of be like a test to see what I could do out of a backpack, because I want to go for like 2-3 weeks. Like I want to be out there a long time, but I think the only way I can do it, if I didn't have like a quad, like an ATV or a snowmobile, the only way I could do it is if I did it in the winter when there's snow and I skied and I pulled a sled. If I pulled a sled behind me, I could take like as much gear as I want, basically.
That would be an awesome video as well. Like I did not think of that when I was watching the video and stuff, thinking like that is some hard going. Because how many miles did you do, or how many kilometers did you travel on that trip? It was a fair distance, wasn't it?
It's 25 kilometers to the camp area, and then I hiked past that like another 5 or 6 kilometers, like back into the valley to explore it. So like overall, I think it was like over 60 kilometers in like 4 days.
No. Did you weigh your bag before you set out? What was the weight?
I didn't actually weigh it, but I figure it was about 75 pounds.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You're going to have to start, did you do any training or anything like that before you went out to get the fitness up?
I mean, well, I've been like running and working out all summer, so.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's just kind of my hobby, so.
But yeah, that's a great idea. I never actually thought of that. Winter time, getting out there. I suppose it's better for you as well, like less bears and things like that as well. So
Less bears, less bugs.
yeah.
It's just cold. It's fucking cold.
What's the
So
weather like there? Is it starting to heat up over there, or is it getting cold over there? What is the weather like?
it's getting cold.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah. It hasn't really snowed much yet, but it probably will in the next couple weeks.
Yeah. Awesome video though, mate. Honestly, I've seen it twice now. I've like literally watched it twice. I'm on my third time. Just before you started calling me, I was watching it through again for the third time because there's always certain things that you pick up. And I'm one of these people when I'm watching your videos or even my own videos back, where I like to look into the background, in case you see something move or anything like that. So yeah, I'm on my third time of watching it, and I just think it's amazing. The scenery, the things you talk about, the people you meet, and their interviews, everything about it is just right up my street, like what I'm into. So I love that kind of stuff. And especially like I know Ken Walker as well, the guy who you showcase in your videos quite a lot. He's quite a popular character, isn't he, on your videos? People seem to like him a lot.
Yeah, people like him, I think mostly because he's very good at talking on camera, and he knows pretty much every story out of this area. He's very knowledgeable, and he 100% believes the stuff that he talks about.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, has Ken ever had his own experience, or is he just has he been told he's had his own experience?
He had a visual sighting of one in northern Alberta. One ran across the road at night in front of his vehicle. He had a friend with him at the time, and that was back. I think it was back in the 80s, 70s or 80s. I think it was the 80s. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, that's crazy, and that's amazing as well. Like I love hearing from people like Ken because although I don't know him personally, the way he comes across and his delivery is so believable. Like you just can't imagine someone like Ken Walker making up that story. Like, and I know that's not enough to go off. Like you can't just believe somebody because they seem like they wouldn't lie, but he seems really, really genuine, and he seems like a logical kind of guy. Like he's not into fairy tales or fantasy. Does that make sense? That's how he comes across.
Yeah. I think if you're not a believer in Sasquatch and then you went and spent an afternoon with Ken, you'd probably
Yeah.
be a believer at the end of it, just by talking to him.
Too bad that you can't get Ken out on your trips as well, like your expeditions. That'd be quite an interesting video.
We are probably going to go out in the field together, probably in the spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know he does. He does want to go out in the field with us, so it'll happen.
Yeah, that'd be a great video as well. So, like, did you come across any of the caves then? Any at all while you was out on that trip?
I didn't come
across.
across.
I can imagine with it being a vast area, they're going to be, like you said in the video, finding a needle in a haystack.
There was one area when I was getting close to the waterfall camp area, like the main campsite. I had looked kind of to the east, and along this mountain there was like a slope that kind of went up to this rock wall, and it kind of looked like there could be an entrance of some sort there, but I'm not sure. It was pretty far away, but I didn't get a chance to get close to it and look, but there could be something there. I think there's probably multiple undiscovered caves in that area, not just one. Like when you go there, I'm sure there's many, many cave entrances. You can kind of see some actual caves up high on the mountain, like in the distance, that'd be kind of impossible to get to unless you had ropes and climbing gear. But
Yeah.
we'll find it eventually.
Yeah. Did Ken tell you about these caves then? Has Ken had word of these caves before or something?
Yeah, apparently there was a hunter that initially found it.
Yeah.
So the word I heard was that he found this cave that was kind of, the entrance was obscured by bushes and vegetation, and inside of it there was piles of animal bones, remains of some kind. I don't know, probably just like deer and elk and things like that. But he's the one who told me about it initially. So
Yeah. It just like you said though, I can imagine when you're out there, it's so overwhelming. You must seem so small when you're looking around at all that scenery, and then trying to take on the task of finding a cave as well with no exact location. That must be an absolute nightmare of a job.
Yeah, I think the best way to probably do it is to scout the area with a drone or something first.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea. Have you still played around with your drone quite a lot? You've got the Mavic Mini, haven't you? Same as me. Oh, well,
Yeah,
I've got the same. Yeah.
I didn't bring it on that trip just because like I couldn't carry any more stuff. My pack was full. But it wouldn't have mattered if I had it anyways because it was way too windy to fly anyways. Like there was no way I was going to be able to fly it.
Yeah. What camera are you using? Because I noticed as well, like during your nighttime shots, when the light became less and less, your quality is still amazing. Like even during those nighttime shots.
On this trip, I was shooting on the Sony A5100.
I'm going to take a
So
note of this.
it's a
So
tiny little mirrorless camera. Like it's amazing the image quality you can get out of it.
yeah, what was it? Sony.
A5100.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that because that's one thing I did notice is the imagery on the night time when the light dropped was super sharp and there's like no noise hardly at all in that footage, which was amazing.
Yeah, I did have a little LED light that I was using as well in some of those shots, but um, that camera, like I was trying to find a camera that was very small and lightweight that I could
Yeah.
charge. Like I could just hook my battery pack up to and charge out in the field. So you can just plug it right into the camera and charge it. I brought the
Yeah.
camera. I had the kit lens, which is a 16 to 50 millimeter. And then I had 2 extra batteries. So I was going really light with the camera gear. I didn't even bring an external microphone or anything like that. I was just recording with the camera's microphones.
Yeah, I was gonna say because that's another thing I picked up on was the audio quality was crisp throughout, like amazing. Yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely need.
it wasn't too bad. I had actually taken some little pieces of foam and I taped them kind of over the microphone holes on the camera to try and help with the wind. It worked
Did it
all right.
work? Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say like a little. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good idea. The camera I've got is the Canon G7X Mark II. I know we've spoke about it before, but the image quality is great. The only thing that lets it down is the audio because when you're out, any slight bit of wind and you're overpowered with sounds like you're in a hurricane.
Yeah.
That is an
You have to definitely be mindful of when you're recording your sound. And you'll notice in like a lot of my shots, there just isn't any sound. Like if there's nothing going on, I just have music
yeah.
instead of shitty audio playing in the background because it was pretty windy.
It's nice though because sometimes during those bits of B-roll, you do like your voiceovers as well, which I've noticed.
Yeah.
I really like that. So you kind of break up your videos with like obviously you on screen talking, then there's some B-roll, but with a voiceover as well, and I think that ties it all together. It's really nice when you do it like that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I was trying to, I guess, have some sort of balance between me talking and then the
Yeah.
actual on camera stuff and then the interview segments with Ken. But I guess one thing I should also clarify about that video is that there's a lot of confused people who are asking if that's the trip like I'm doing for the Quest for the Wildman series,
Yeah.
like that I had to GoFundMe for. This is a completely separate project. It's just the same place, kind of like a test to see what I could do, but it's not Bigfoot Quest for the Wildman. It's Beast of the North. It's a separate thing.
And that's great though, because like you said, it gives you a test run. Like you get chance to get out there, boots on the ground, and see what works and what doesn't work. So I think that's a great idea that you went out there before actually doing the bigger expedition, because now you've learned a lot. Like you've learned that you're going to need more than just a rucksack, for example. And in order to find some of these caves that are further off, you're probably going to need a drone as well. So I think the test run, the Beast of the North, I think that's set you up in good stead for when you do go out to do the longer expedition.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of equipment that I definitely want to bring that I wasn't able to bring on that trip.
Yeah.
Like I would definitely bring a chainsaw if I went back out there. Yeah, I would bring a chainsaw so I could get as much firewood as possible.
Yeah. What, just like a little handheld chainsaw?
Yeah, like a gas-powered chainsaw.
What would you obviously, obviously at this point now, then if you're taking a chainsaw, you would need some kind of like a quad or a sled, I suppose. I was going to say, what would you sacrifice though if you're taking your chainsaw? But obviously, it makes sense that you'd just be taking something to carry it with.
Yeah,
I
if I
can't
had a
imagine
sled.
that in your rucksack.
Yeah, no, I'd pull it in a sled or something like that.
Yeah. So when you're out in these places, I was going to ask you this: do you ever listen to anything Bigfoot related? Do you read books while you're out there? Do you listen to podcasts, anything like that?
Dude, the whole time pretty much I was out there, I was listening to Mysterious Universe podcast. So I had downloaded like probably like 15 episodes of that podcast. And I just
Is that the
pretty much.
guys?
What's that?
Is that the Australian guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good podcast.
Yeah, I was listening to that like nonstop.
It sometimes doesn't work in your favor though, does it? Because once you start listening to these things, you can get creeped out sometimes. Like I seem to listen to like Sasquatch Chronicles quite a lot when I'm out, and I love it because it gets me in the mood for talking about the subject, but it also can freak me out as well.
Yeah, it was interesting because there wasn't really any time that I was getting like a weird feeling of like maybe something's watching me. Like I didn't really get creeped out at all on the trip, which was surprising. The only time I did was when I found all those trees that were smashed around and like strewn over that hillside. That was the only time I felt creeped out. But then once I realized just my mind playing tricks on me and there was a completely natural explanation, I kind of chilled out and relaxed. But
Which
like
was another part of your video as well. Like I've said this to you before, millions of times before, but for me, that's what sets you apart from other people is that you could have quite easily glorified that right until the end. But as soon as you twigged and realised that it was caused by an avalanche, I think it's amazing that you come forward and just say, look, I was wrong. It was an avalanche and this is how it... Do you know what I mean? I really like that. And I'm sure a lot of people do appreciate it.
But then there's also people in the comments I read who are saying like, dude, this is a Sasquatch, like, and you're calling it an avalanche. You're like you're a liar. You're a fraud. Some guy said that. I'm like,
you can't win. You can't
serious?
win.
There's people that aren't even there. They're watching it. They're watching the edited footage.
Oh god.
Like what I should do is just post all the footage uncut of that so you can see.
Yeah.
It starts off like I'm super weirded out. And I thought I was going into like this place where they had like nests. Like I believed that at first. I'm like, oh crap, like what am I doing? And then I got a point of higher elevation and was able to get a better look of things. And I'm like, no, this is like for sure an avalanche. And it just explains how those trees could get ripped out and picked up and, carried so far. So
it's an incredible force though when you think about that. Like some of those trees.
You would not want to get caught in that. You'd die for sure.
Well, it just shows you, like, I mean, I've seen avalanches before, obviously on TV and stuff, but to see the sheer power of it like that, where it's ripped trees apart of the ground and the root system and everything, it's just crazy to think that power comes from an avalanche. Like,
it's cool though because in my Supernatural Sasquatch Part 2 video, at the beginning of it, I saw an avalanche like happen. I don't know if you remember that.
That was off in the distance across the valley, wasn't it? Up on the adjacent mountain top of there. I seen that. That was brilliant. Yeah. Was that quite? Did you hear that before you saw it? Or
I heard it first, and then I looked, and then I saw this big cloud of snow moving down the mountain, and I was like, "Oh crap!" Like,
have you seen it? One of the first you've seen, or?
It was the first one I've actually seen, like in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this Ruby Falls, like, how far is that from where you are? How far do you have to drive out to there?
From the city I live in, Edmonton,
Yeah.
it's about a 4-hour drive, like a
Wow.
solid 4-hour drive, and then you got to walk in for a whole day. So
Yeah.
it's way out there.
I think on a multi-day trip out there, like a multi-day camp, I think something will turn up. I've got a feeling. I've said this to you in messages over the last few weeks. Is that I just feel one of us is gonna pick up something extraordinary or something that we've never experienced before. I don't know why that is. I've got a really strong feeling, but when I was watching your video as well, I think a multi-day trip out there will definitely turn up something.
I hope so. Like they've been spotted all along that riverbed that I was hiking along, but I personally, like being honest, I personally believe I would have better success in the area I was in Supernatural Sasquatch Part 2. I
Yeah,
don't know why. I guess I have I get a really eerie, creepy feeling when I'm in that area. And I
yeah.
found something that looks like a track in that area, and I heard weird noises in that area. There's seems to be more activity there than there is in this valley where they've been seen. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
So why don't you go back there then and make a multi-day trip there? Like, do
I mean,
just absolutely hammer that area. Like, spend like a lot of time there.
I did 3 trips out there in the spring,
Yeah.
so I do keep going back there. I would
Is
like
that
to work the 2 sites, like do one trip and then kind of go back and forth between the 2 sites and see what happens. But
no? I was thinking, is it possible to set up like some kind of a camera where you can have like a live feed? But then I was thinking, how would you get power to that? Like, it'd be great if you could go to, say, Ruby Falls, set up a camera, come back and monitor that camera from home. But then how would you get power to this camera? That's the thing, isn't it?
you would have to have some sort of high tech setup with either like car batteries or like solar panels or something.
Yeah. Because
And
I,
then
because I,
it's hard to
I've,
get all that
you go.
equipment out there.
Yeah.
And I also don't have unlimited resources.
Yeah, that's true. Because I've seen these things on the internet before. Do you know where you can go like view a live camera of, say, London Bridge? And I've always thought like that'd be great to do that. Set up a camera somewhere and have some kind of a backup battery and be able to view it remotely from somewhere else. That'd be handy.
Hmm. Yeah, that would be cool. I don't know. There's people do think I have unlimited resources. They're like, dude, have you ever thought about putting a thermal camera on a drone? I'm like, it's so unrealistic. You know how expensive that would be?
Yeah,
What kind of
just have you ever thought about nuking the whole area and just going and collecting everything that's laid out dead?
Yeah, I know.
Are you taking anybody along with you, like on any of your future camps that you got coming up?
I mean, I would,
I,
but I
I
don't.
worry, dude. I worry about you. Like you're going into these open areas and there's just you and you're going and like you're miles away from your car, and I just think, shit, if something goes wrong.
Dude, I don't know a lot of people that would be down to go in there and spend all that time with me in there.
Yeah,
Like I don't know a lot of people who have that experience that where they'd be willing to do that and not have the shit completely scared out of them, you
yeah,
know? But like it's funny, like you'll hear a lot of other researchers saying like yeah, the bush is like unforgiving and it's super dangerous and blah 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 blah. But like realistically, it's not as bad as what people try and make it out to be. Like
yeah.
it's not that it can be dangerous, but it's not that dangerous. I mean, I don't know. I've had lots of like formal training like in the outdoors. That's what I went to school for is to become an outdoor guide. So I guess for me it just I'm used to it and it doesn't seem as bad as what people make it out to be. They're like, "Dude, this is so dangerous, you're gonna go missing and blah blah blah." I'm like, I don't know, I've studied this area quite a bit and like I have a lot of experience in the Rockies here in Alberta, and I pretty much know the area like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
The only thing I am worried about is like running into a bear. and even then, the odds of it going south are not that high.
So yeah, like when I was looking as well, like on your last video when I was watching it, something as well, I'm so new to this whole Bigfoot thing. Like normally my expertise is like the extraterrestrial UFO phenomena. And one thing I kept thinking about is like I always assumed Bigfoot live in these forested areas, and Ruby Falls is kind of like an open, rocky terrain.
It is past the falls. Before the falls, there's a lot of forest.
Oh,
Like
really?
a lot. Yeah. And they've been seen there, so it's like,
yeah.
And the tree structures, like the area with all those crazy structures, is not that far away from that area.
Yeah. I have heard like more stories now as well as I got into this more and more of people seeing these things walking across the boulder fields and things like that. So, but it was just new to me. I always assumed, and I think it's like a newbie mistake, isn't it? Somebody that's new to the phenomena assumes that Bigfoot is walking around through these forests, but it's not always the case.
But just think though, like people have said that to me, like that's such a vast, desolate area, and it is. It's very open. There's not a lot of bush, like in some of those areas. It's all rock and like lichen, and it's almost like an Arctic tundra in there, is what it reminded me of. Like, but just imagine how fast a Sasquatch can move. Like they could easily just walk right through there in an hour. It's not like they're going out of their way. Like, if I can go back there in an afternoon, they easily could. Like, why wouldn't they go back there?
What's the thought process of the Bigfoot moving down that way during certain times of the year? Like, what is the thought? Is it mating or?
Ken Walker says that they'll meet up at the tree structure location before the winter, before the snow falls. All the Sasquatch in the area, they'll meet there. And then once they're all together, they'll head out to that area for the winter. And they'll hide out in the mountains. They'll hide out potentially where this cave is. And then that's where they'll stay. And during the winter, he says the male Sasquatch will go out, do the hunting, collect all the resources, and the females and the juveniles will stay hidden basically and sheltered from the elements.
Wow,
that's all theoretical, right? Like,
yeah, but it makes sense because like when wintertime comes and they move to like steeper ground, you can imagine with all the snow on the surface, nobody's going to be able to trudge up there looking for anything. They're going to be safe as houses, basically.
yeah.
It'd be a great.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
So,
like, it's fascinating that we have tried to make up behavioural patterns for something that we don't know even exists. But that to me is what fascinates me so much, is that there's these hunters, like these people that talk to Ken and tell their stories. And I just love that because they're so passionate about getting out there. They know the land like the back of their hand. And if you've seen one of these things, then for you, it's so real. I don't know. I love it. These little things that we put together, we piece together about Bigfoot, like the behavioral patterns, where they move at certain times of year. All these different things make me believe that this is a real thing. This isn't someone just making a story up. So when I hear things, I love it because it just makes the whole case of Bigfoot that much stronger for me, anyway.
yeah. That's cool. When we went out to his place and like I filmed those parts of him talking, it wasn't even like planned. I didn't want to film those parts initially. We went there and started talking, and I'm like, man, this conversation's going really well. I should just start filming it. So as the conversation is happening between like me and three other guys, I just started filming, and that's how the footage came to be of that. It's kind of funny.
Who was the other two guys there?
What's that?
Who was the other two guys there with Ken?
One of them is Keenan. He's been in a couple other videos of mine. He does the website for the Alberta Sasquatch organization, and he also does a lot of investigations and talks to all the witnesses who send in reports. And then the other guy is Dene First Nations guy. His name's Raymond, and he does work for like CBC, and like writes for CBC. He's a movie producer, basically. Does lots of documentary work.
What's the story behind the scat that Ken has? Like, how did he come across? How did he find that?
I can't recall how exactly he found the specific spot. I think he might have just kind of stumbled upon it, but there was an area. This is really close to the tree structures. There was an area in the winter that was all flattened out, and it looked like a place where a Sasquatch would set itself up to act as like a sentry, to kind of watch people coming in and out of the area.
Yeah.
And so we found this spot, and there was all this scat there, kind of frozen with the snow. And it was interesting because there were these branches that were like up high that had sections that were like worn out where a creature would have grabbed onto.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. I don't know if it was just squatting down or it would just use these branches to pull itself up, but that's kind of the story behind that. If Ken, there's a film that just came out about Ken called Big Fur, and it's about him making the replica Sasquatch.
Really? Where can I find that?
I think it's on. You could probably find it on iTunes and like Google Play.
Yeah.
I made a little video review of it on my channel, but there's a part in there where he's at that spot and he kind of describes finding that scat.
So in terms of sightings and in terms of people having these experiences with Sasquatch, is the number increasing or decreasing? Are people having more sightings? Or
It's hard to say if they're having more or if they're just becoming more willing to get their stories out there.
yeah,
The subject is becoming more popular and more people are becoming interested in it. It seems like we're always getting more and more reports. Like, I don't know. It's interesting. Some of them are really good and some of them aren't, but people are becoming more willing to come forward with their stories.
yeah. I was fascinated by the story that Ken told about the 3 stones stacked on top of each other. That was really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
When he was talking about the woman that everybody basically thought was lying, and then he said that something else popped up and kind of confirmed that, well, actually 2 people that are separate, they have no ties to each other, are basically saying the same story. I love whenever I hear things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of helps back up
That's
each
right.
story. Like if you have multiple people saying the same thing, then what are the
Yeah.
odds of?
It's like I used a similar example in one of my previous videos. It happens a lot in the extraterrestrial field as well, where people will come back after being abducted and they'll draw star maps that another person from the other side of the world will draw. Now, these 2 people don't have any connection. They're not related. They're not friends of friends. And yet they're drawing the same thing. And it's when things like that happen, you start to ask the question, how is this possible? How is this even possible that 2 people are drawing the same thing and have shared the same experience? Things like that to me make it a lot more believable. Because it's almost impossible. I mean, like, what's the chances of me and you sitting down, even now, and we do know each other, and drawing the same thing without ever, do you know what I mean? It's just, for me, that's impossible. Something that has got to have happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy.
It is. Even like down to, I mean, there's so many similarities that these people talk about. So there's a lot of times when people get abducted and they get taken onto a craft, and a mass majority of people start talking about this projector, and they get shown certain images of the world and how it will be in the future, how catastrophes are going to happen, like tsunamis, earthquakes. And this is a repeating story that happens over and over again. Like hundreds and hundreds of people keep talking about this same situation taking place. It's like what Ken was talking about with the 3 stones. Unless the guy heard her story and tried to copy it somehow, but it's very, I don't know. I like hearing things like that.
Yeah, I don't think those people had any communication with each other at all.
No.
So that is very interesting. Have you ever like done any reading on like thought forms?
What is that? Thought forms? I've never heard of it.
I don't know the exact definition, but essentially, from my understanding, it's like if a person focuses on something enough and thinks about it enough, that you basically think something into existence.
I believe,
You
yeah,
think
that's
like
crazy.
you could create an entity of some kind with your mind, basically.
I think everybody does that to a certain degree, where you think about somebody and then the phone rings and it's that person on the line. Do you know what I mean? I think that there is something that does happen, doesn't it? Like quite a lot.
Yeah.
Like, thinking I haven't seen that person for a long time, and then you walk down the street and there they are. It's quite strange when something like that happens.
Yeah, but what I was trying to get to was that maybe some people think about it and believe in it so much that they almost create this entity with their mind, create it into existence, kind of, and they end up like witnessing Sasquatch. But then I'm like, how would that explain a lot of the physical stuff that's left behind, like footprints and
And the question I would have there is, if people are thinking this thing into existence, who was the first person to see it then? Because before anybody else talks about this thing, this has never been spoke about. You couldn't think that into existence because, do you know what I mean? So if you're the very first person to ever see a Sasquatch, how would you think that into existence? I mean, if you start speaking to me about Sasquatch and I'm thinking about it and you're telling me the details of a Sasquatch, then I could understand that. But if you've never seen this thing before and there is no details to go off, how do you think that into existence? That'd be quite tricky.
somebody would have had to just invented it in their mind. And then they passed it forward. I don't know.
So then in that situation then would it be a physical form or like a, because obviously footprints would need accounting for as well, so how would that work?
I don't know. Probably the same way a poltergeist would work.
Yeah, true. Very
I'm
true.
not sure. This is just a dumb theory I was thinking about. I've just been listening to too many episodes of Mysterious Universe.
I don't think there's any dumb theories, to be honest. I think that everything's open for debate because we don't know enough about it, and it could be any one of these things. It's the same as the extraterrestrial phenomenon, isn't it? I mean, a lot of people think that they're trying to steal eggs to reproduce and live amongst humans. Some people think that we are some kind of experiment and they're monitoring us. There's so many different theories out there, but none of them are really wrong because we don't actually know any truth about it at all. Do you know what I mean? It sounds crazy. You could, like, I hear theories all the time, and I think that's crazy. But how crazy is it? Like, do you know what I mean? If we're already talking about aliens, all the cards are off the table.
Yeah. We should talk about your little excursion into the Rendlesham forest.
Yeah, that was a great trip. Someone's asked me to actually go back and do the same thing again. Like I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
Like, can you go back and do it again? I'm not going back there and doing that again. Like, the ending of that video wasn't planned. Like, I didn't want to be roughed up and scragged to the ground. But yeah, that was a once in a lifetime trip for me. Rendlesham Forest has been a massive like part of why I got into UFOs when I started watching documentaries. That was obviously one of the first ones that came up with it being so big here in the UK. And ever since then, I always thought I'd love to go. I'd love to just go, even if it's just to camp in that woods in the forest and say that I've done it. But obviously, you saw the video, we took it one step too far. It wasn't good enough.
I think you guys could have done it without getting caught, but there were a couple of mistakes that were made.
Definitely. I think there was a lot of mistakes. What would you say that we could have done different?
I would have just been moving around in total darkness.
Yeah. But with that, my only problem there was it wouldn't have made good footage. Like, the camera wouldn't have picked any of it up, really. Unless we're running around with torches, and at this point, then it gets a bit risky. So I did think that. I did think we should go in after dark, but the camera would have struggled so bad.
If you had some sort of infrared camera or something, that would have been better. But
I honestly feel like they knew we was there before we even got over the fence. Because when we was walking around the perimeter and we was looking for a way over, I kept saying to Junior, do you think there's actually cameras out here now, like, watching us look for a way over? And he was like, no, don't be stupid. Like, just let's get over. And I was thinking, well, it just seemed, you see this all the time on TV programs where the base actually has cameras like in the woods outside on trees and things like that. And I kind of reckon they knew we was there before we ever even got over that fence. For some reason, I don't know, but yeah, it seemed too easy for him. Like as soon as we only went to like 2 hangars and then we headed for the runway. And by the time we got to the runway, they were already shooting down the runway itself. So we were screwed. I said it in the video, and when I was stood underneath there, when they caught me, they dragged me back directly underneath the comms tower, and I was trying to look up at what these things were. There were like 4 things on tripods, and to me it looked like sensors. The guy said it was a sensor, but I don't know if he said that to prevent me from trying again or passing information on to anyone else from trying again. But yeah, it just as soon as we got on that grass area and started making the approach to the comms tower, that's when they started just flying down the runway in jeeps. So yeah.
What did they do to you when they caught you?
Well, they wanted Junior, so they basically said you need to give your friend a call and get him out of here now, because if you don't, we're not leaving and you'll be here all night. So I was like, I don't honestly know where he is, and he's like, we don't believe that. Ring him. So I was like, now I'm thinking, this is the worst friend ever. Like, I'm gonna ring him, and they stood right next to me. So I'm looking at my phone and I'm thinking, do I try and press this number? Or I said it's not working. I haven't got signal. So I thought the guy sounded pretty convincing. He was like, look, ring your friend, get him out now, and we need to speak to both of you. Once your friend comes out, we'll let you go. And I was thinking, this is bullshit. Like, that's a complete lie. But anyway, I tried to ring Junior. Was obviously good on his behalf. I knew he wouldn't answer anyway, because I wouldn't have answered, no way. And then they were saying, right, where did you get in? And I honestly couldn't remember where we got in, because once you turn around after running around in that place, you're so disorientated. It's really hard to say, yeah, we came over this way, because it all looks the same. And he was wanting to know why I was there. So I told him that I'm making a documentary film for my channel. He said, I don't believe you. And I said, well, I'm wearing a hoodie that has my channel's name on it, if that's any more proof. He said, what is it exactly you're talking about? The UFOs? And I said, well, kind of, yeah, like the Rendlesham story and the history behind it. He said, what about it? And I was like, well, just everything. I was like, just everything that happened that night. And he's like, why? What happened that night? And I was like, oh man, you know what happened that night? You just they clearly knew that they must have this quite a lot. They must have people going in there quite a lot. And so yeah, he just didn't believe me. And then he said, right, I need to see your camera. And I was like, you can't really, have to do that. I didn't know whether he was or he wasn't. I just thought I'd say it and try my luck. But he was like, show me your camera. You're on military MOD property. I'm allowed to do what I want. I want to see that camera. I want to see the footage now. So I started showing him the footage. But as I mentioned in the video, what I did was I pressed back the opposite way. So it brings me right to the very start of all the footage. And in the start of the footage, it was basically just me saying, look, I've turned up to Rendlesham to talk about it. There was no footage of me running around in the hangars at this point, because obviously I went the opposite way. And so I started flipping through, and then somebody else started talking to the guy, which kind of took his concentration away. And then I turned the camera off thinking, oh, well, that'll be it. Like, he didn't want to see right to the end, so screw it. He took some details off me. And like I said, he went through the reasons of why we was there. And that was it. He said, right, I want you to show me where you got in. So I took him to where I thought we got in. And I looked like a complete idiot, because when we got there, I was like, actually, no, it's not this place. It wasn't this place where we got over. It was a tree. And he was like, I thought you told me there was a hole. Because this is the thing, like, I was trying to justify my reasons for being in there. And I played dumb. I was trying to play dumb. I was saying, oh, I didn't know this was like still in use. I didn't know. And he was like, how did you not know it's still in use? There's military of defense signs everywhere. And I was like, well, I didn't see them. I didn't see any signs. I said, there's holes everywhere. Like, we walked up and down the perimeter fence, there's holes everywhere. So I just assumed that people was coming in and out of here anyway. That was a lie. There wasn't holes anywhere. We tried, and they'd all been patched up. But yeah, I took him to the tree, and he said, I thought you said you got him by a hole. And I was like, oh, yeah, no. I kind of screwed up. I was just lying. I was like, no, this is definitely it. We definitely got over on the tree. He was like, well, you just told me you got into a hole. He said, you said there was a hole somewhere near the main gate. And I was like, no. I said we saw a hole when we came through, but we actually got over on this tree. So he then let me go, watched me climb over the fence back onto the main track, and then followed me right from there to the main gate, because I think what they were expecting is me to meet with Junior and then basically grab us both together. But Junior had long gone by this point. He was already in the main part of the forest, like somewhere else, miles away. So at this point, yeah, I was was aware. But what an experience! Like, such a great experience to be in there, running around in them hangars.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Just the feeling of like, even just that feeling of being inside that hangar and thinking, this is crazy to think that in 1980, this whole place would have been alive. Like, everybody would have been buzzing. There would have been rumors flying around everywhere. And lights, strobe lights, sirens, you name it, everything would have been happening in 1980 on that base. And here I am now running around, like, talking about these things. I just think that was an amazing, amazing thing.
Yeah, that's really sweet. I'm glad you went out there because I remember saying, like, dude, you should go to Rendlesham Forest.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So good. Yeah, I look back at that now and I just think that that's one of those videos where it's always there now. Like, that memory's been set in stone. I can look back at that in 20 years' time and think that was such a great time and, like, what an experience.
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's... What's that?
I was going to say, because for me, Rendlesham Forest is 100% legit. I don't believe there's any denying that never happened.
Yeah. No, I think it's legit too. But I don't think there's a lot of videos out there of people actually going into that base.
I've not seen any. I've not seen any.
Yeah, I thought you were totally screwed when those guys started yelling at you.
Well, this is the thing. Like, I completely shit myself as well, because you've got to think, like, I'm laid there on the grass. Junior first saw the vehicle. Like, I didn't know what was happening. Junior stopped. If you watch the video, Junior froze, and I kind of like said to him, "What are you doing? Like, keep going." And he was like, "No, I can. Like, there's a car or something." So I looked up, and at this point, I saw the 4x4 coming down the runway, go full speed. So I was like, "Shit, get down!" So we jumped down on the ground, and as the minute I poked my head up to see where the first vehicle was going, because they went past us at first, a second one was on the way down the runway. And I said to Junior, "Shit, there's two, stay down, stay down." And at this point, when I looked up to see what the second one was doing, the first one was already doing a U-turn. So they'd obviously seen us. There was no, at this point, I knew it was obviously they'd seen us. So I was like, "Look, let's not wait around, just get up and run." And Junior, he went one way, I went the other way. And the scariest part was being laid in that bush, in the thorn bush, knowing that I was surrounded, because it's that whole thing of not knowing what's going to happen next. Like, I didn't know how much trouble I was in. I didn't know what was going to happen or anything. But yeah, that was a creepy experience. Listening to the car doors slam and they're all I could hear them all talking amongst themselves. He went this way, he went that way. It was just a real scary experience.
Probably felt like you were in a video game or something.
I did. But you know when the worst bit for me was when this realization hit me, this one realization, and it was that I was laid in that bush and I was thinking, shit. It kind of just came over me all at once. I thought, all they're going to do is just follow my trail right through that fresh vegetation to where I'm laid. Like, you know what I mean? It not been walked in for years. And then all of a sudden it's got me ploughing right through it. I'm going to have led a trail right to where I am. And at this point I started flapping because I thought, well, I'm going to have to get up because that's just silly. So I tried to get over that fence, but there was no way with a tripod and a camera and everything else I was going to get over that. And at that point I realised I'm screwed. When I got home, I said to Carrie, I was saying, look, we might be expecting a call or a visit in the next few weeks because they took the details. It never happened. I never got a visit. I honestly thought I would. I honestly thought that a week or two later there'd be a knock on the door, but it never came.
Dude, they're fans of your YouTube now.
Some guy commented down in the comments box below and he was saying, "Oh, this is a joke. You paid to go on there, and I actually know the guy who grabbed hold of you," and they all laugh about it and said it was a big con. And I'm like, what? Like, how is this guy for real? Or does this someone would think that?
Yeah, it's probably one of them fucking with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy. Dude, I just watched this really good documentary. It's called The Phenomenon.
Oh,
it's UFO.
Yeah, funny you should mention that. I was listening to a podcast last night, The Unexplained with Hughes. Have you ever listened to that podcast?
No.
Oh, I highly recommend it. So it's called The Unexplained by Hughes. And it's such a great podcast. And on there, he had the guy who made the documentary. and he was basically urging people to go check it out on YouTube. So when I went over there, not on YouTube, sorry, on wherever it is, Prime, I think. But I went on YouTube to see if I could find anything, and the trailer looks quite good. So have you seen that? Have you?
It's really good. There's they talk about this really crazy, like mass UFO sighting from the early '90s back in, I think it was in Zimbabwe in Africa. There was like
Is that at the school?
Yeah, there was like 60 some students that all saw these craft and these alien beings, and they were just scared shitless. Like, probably the most incredible and creepy UFO encounter I've ever heard of. And I didn't even know about it until I watched it in that that documentary.
Yeah, there was teachers that experienced it. It landed in just outside the playground, and some of those kids are obviously still around, like, and so they're adults now.
Well, there's one video I found of a lady. She's from Canada, and she was actually one of those students. She was a Canadian, but her parents worked for like the government, so she was in Zimbabwe at the time. Wow. And it's a more recent interview of her talking about what happened, and it was just like, it's fascinating. And then all the footage, like the interview footage of the kids like being questioned, is just, it's got to be all genuine. Like the kids, all of them reporting the same thing, and they look so sincere.
It's strange, like, that isn't the only case that ever happened outside of school. Like, if you look at some of the UFO cases throughout history, it happens quite a lot. Like, there was one famous case, I can't remember the name of it now, but there was countless school children that saw this craft, this miniature craft. It was only tiny, like the size of a drone. It landed off the playground, and all the kids ran over, and these little beings got out of this craft and started to fire something at the children. One of them actually got hit in the leg by this green laser, and then the teachers came out and they saw it as well. So it was actually a real thing that happened. This happens quite a lot.
I'm definitely going to be incorporating, I think, more UFO stuff into my channel slowly. Kind of do a mix of Bigfoot and UFOs. You can only talk about Bigfoot so much. Like, there's only so many stories.
That's exactly it, mate. That's why I started to talk. I started off doing the extraterrestrial thing, and the same happened. I found that I was basically becoming samey. I was talking about the same things all the time, and then I started to talk about the wild man. And then over time, I gradually tried to incorporate the two and mix them up whenever I could. So I just think it works a lot better like that for me. Like, obviously, we've been having an audience that's into UFOs and extraterrestrials, as well as Bigfoot as well.
Yeah. I mean,
like, on your video when you started saying about the lights, like when you was out on the expedition and you saw those lights, like, it shows you right there that people who watch your channel was also fascinated by the lights as well. So that's a great thing to start mentioning and talking about, is these weird lights that keep getting seen. I wonder why that is. Like, I wonder what that's about. That's weird, isn't it?
I don't know, but like, when you're out in the wilderness, it's way easier to see stuff in the sky.
Yeah.
If you're in the city, there's no light pollution and there's not much going on at night, so you're looking at the stars and you're actually paying attention to it.
Yeah.
So it's cool too. The night vision that I bought, when you point it at the sky, like, you can see a lot.
Is that the same thing what people use? Because, like, I'm not sure if you've seen these channels on YouTube where they film UFOs and it's kind of like that night vision look with the green tint. Is that what they're using? Like some kind of night vision?
Probably.
I'd like to get like that. Start doing videos like that, like night watches and stuff.
Yeah, like this one, it has the mode where it'll actually project an infrared beam and enhance that. But also you can shut that off. So what it'll do is it'll just enhance like moonlight and starlight.
Yeah.
You have that pointed up at the sky, it makes it really easy to see things and record things that are in the sky. It would be perfect for filming a UFO.
Will you send me was it expensive?
It was like 500 Canadian dollars.
Holy shit. That's quite expensive, isn't it?
Yeah, it'd probably be like maybe a little over 300 for you.
Yeah. How far do you see with it? And can you see quite far as well? Or?
Yeah, it's pretty good. The only trouble I noticed with it is when you're running it off AA batteries and it's cold,
Yeah.
it tends to die quite fast. But you can plug an external like battery pack into it and just run it off an external battery.
Oh, you'll have to send me the link for it because I'll have to have a look. I'd love to do something like that. It's something I've wanted to do for a while, is introduce those types of videos to the channel. But I never understood what they were using. Like when they're looking at the sky and they can see all these different lights, I didn't know what they were using to do that. But if it's night vision, then I'm getting one.
I'll send you a link. It's called the Bushnell Equinox. Bushnell Equinox Z2 or something like that. I'll give you. But
Yeah,
it has a tripod mount on the bottom, so you can put it on a tripod to get really stable footage.
Perfect what I need. Somebody's asked me recently to do have you ever seen this before, where people go out and they believe that they can summon UFOs through like meditation and telekinesis? Yeah, people have been asking me to do that kind of stuff, and it's not something that I'd normally entertain because, quite frankly, I don't believe in it. But
I think
I'm
you
willing
should.
to.
I think that's
I'm willing.
legit. Dude, I believe that.
Do you really believe that? Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Have you seen the documentary by Dr. Stephen Greer?
No, I haven't seen it.
Dude, I'll send you a link to that because you have to watch it. Throughout the whole documentary, they show you footage and images of the UFOs and beings that they caught on camera.
Wow.
It's quite spectacular. They have a huge collection of stuff that they've recorded during these meditation sessions. It's not like they're not summoning them. They're just using their subconscious to contact these ET beings.
Yeah. No, I will. I'll try it. It's like I'll try anything. To be fair, it's one of those things that I don't really have much faith in. But like I always say, I'm one person, and there's hundreds of people that do believe in it. So my opinion stands for nothing. So I will try it. And yeah, I'd love it if it did. If it worked, then that'd be amazing.
There's an app you can download.
I wonder what they say though. What's the app?
There's an app you can download. It's created by Dr. Stephen Greer, but it basically can put you in contact with other people who are interested in that in your area. So you can put together like a group that will go out and do these sessions. So there's probably people around you that are into that.
Why does the numbers affect the outcome? Like the more people you have, does that make it more of a chance of working? Or
I don't know. Maybe. I have no idea. Maybe
I'm one of those people. I'm
maybe
one
you're
of those people that
energy out there.
What was that? Sorry.
I said maybe you're putting more energy out into the universe if you have more people.
Yeah, I'm one of those people though that would beg for them to come, show themselves, and then the minute they do, I'm like, "Go away, goddamn guys!"
Yeah,
that'd be me.
They seem to be pretty harmless.
Yeah, it's weird though, isn't it? Like, do you not find that weird that you sit there and somehow in your brain you send out a signal? I find that like really weird, but fascinating at the same time. It's just strange to me. I'd love that if that worked.
Yeah, I don't. It seems like there's a part of your brain that's just like completely locked away, pretty much for the most part, unless you're dreaming. You know,
Yeah.
there's so much of it that we don't understand yet.
I still find it really strange that in 2020 we still have people that believe we are alone in the universe. That to me blows my mind, that people like that still exist. Like, I honestly believe that these people haven't been out on a starry night, because where I go, like into the North Yorkshire moors, on a clear night, when you look up, and if you think to yourself, we're alone amongst all that, I don't understand how. I don't understand how people can think like that.
Yeah, but
Because,
even like, especially nowadays in 2020, like it's pretty well known and accepted that UFOs are real, especially with all these high-level government guys coming out and saying that they're real. Like there's stuff that we don't know about that's flying around, like in our atmosphere. You know,
It's like I had one comment on one of my videos recently, and this guy was he was jotting me down a lot of statistics about how it's almost impossible for life to exist, and that we're some kind of a miracle, and for that to happen again is almost impossible. And I basically commented back to this guy saying, well, we can't, how can we start throwing stats out there and numbers about the chances of life existing elsewhere when we don't even know how big the universe is? If we don't know how big the universe is, we don't know how many more planets are out there which could potentially have life on. You know, you need all these numbers before you can start doing the math. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, you can't say, yeah, well, I've added up all the number of planets and it's almost impossible, because we can't do that without knowing the size of the universe. And then it annoys me as well, because people say that we're a miracle and we're a one-off. It couldn't happen again because there's no other planets out there that have the same chemistry as what we do here on Earth. And that one always baffles me as well, because I think, why do people assume that something living out there would need the same chemistry as us? Like, there could be billions of other planets that have completely different chemistry to what we've ever seen before. Just because we've got this little chart, this periodic table, where all these little chemistry symbols and stuff fall in place. Do you know what I mean? There's so much out there that we don't know anything about. It just blows my mind that someone can say, no, there's nothing, we're a miracle, and that's it. Like, I don't understand. That's so small-minded, in my opinion, to think that way.
Yeah, I know. But there's still I bet you there is planets that are extremely similar to Earth.
Yeah.
With the same basically.
Everything we've ever predicted has been wrong. Like, everything. So, like, at one point we thought that the sun was the center of the universe. Then we realized it wasn't. At one point we thought everything evolved around us, and then we realized it didn't. We thought the Earth was flat, then we realized it wasn't. Everything, or every prediction we ever made about space has been wrong. And, like, how we think life exists, or the way we think life has to exist, with oxygen being made up of carbon, all these different things, I think you just scrap that completely, because on another planet that might not even be the case. Do you know what I mean? It might be so vastly different beyond our understanding. It's just, I don't understand how people can make that assumption. What is weird, though, is that I say that, and then what is really weird is that a lot of these people who have been abducted, they don't talk about aliens with 4 heads or tentacles and huge suckers on their arms. They talk about aliens that look more human. Now, I find that really strange as well, because in the infinity of space where anything is possible, the least likely thing you would expect to see is something that looks like human again. And yet this keeps reoccurring over and over and over. Everybody well, not everybody, but a mass majority of people that are abducted talk about meeting these human-like creatures, or mutants, where they look half human, half not human. This happens all the time. Travis Walton explains the same thing. Betty and Barney Hill, every case that you go through, these people have met human-looking like creatures, which I find very, very strange.
I don't know. Maybe like the human form, like 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes. Maybe that's like the best way naturally that a being could, I mean, like be, you know, like it just makes sense.
Yeah, that's true. It's a great point. Because like I was saying, you would expect them to be totally different, but maybe they're not, because 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head works, and that's maybe something as simple as that.
Yeah,
and it's the same reason fish has fins and not legs, because it works.
What if we're part alien though? They probably made us, dude.
I honestly believe we could be. Like, I've said this for a long time, is that if you look at humans and you look at every other animal on this planet, we are so vastly different. Like, even the nearest cousins to us, the great apes, are so vastly different to us. Like, what is it that makes us so different? Why are we so special? Because we are special. We do everything different. We've got language that's on a completely different level to any other animal. we have these things called emotions where we feel jealousy and envy and pain and all these different things. And you look at the animal kingdom, there's not an animal out there like us. And I just think that, why is that? You have 1,000,001 different types of fish. You have 1,000,001 different types of birds. You only have one type of human. And that to me has question marks, red flags. I want to know why that is. Like, what took part to create us? Like, there must be a missing link somewhere or something from somewhere else that made us, because we are just so vastly different.
There's a lot of people nowadays who speculate that even like our history is completely, I think it is, and civilization's way older than what we thought. Like, you know, they think that there's civilizations that existed, you know, beyond 10,000 years ago that were highly advanced. It's just stuff we don't know about, and we're just starting to find little bits and pieces of evidence for nowadays.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I feel like there's a whole section of history that's kind of gone, probably.
Yeah, and why does history go the way it goes? Have you ever thought about this one? Like, when you look back at history, it seems like we was very, very super intelligent people. Like when the Egyptians started building the pyramids, the Aztecs started building the pyramids there, the Mayans, we were super intelligent. And then we kind of went back. Like, if you look at the medieval times where we're living in mud and like straw huts and we're living amongst cattle, like it just doesn't make sense. We were super intelligent. We were building these big palaces and monuments that lasted thousands and thousands of years. Then we go from that to sleeping with cattle. It's strange.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. It doesn't make sense. It's a big mystery.
It is. And we've spoke about this before, like on our channels and stuff, and like when me and you've got together. But the pyramids, like the people that built the pyramids, where did they get this design from? Because they were all doing it at a time on Earth where nobody was traveling. Like these, apparently, I mean, this is according to history, these civilizations had never met, and yet they're all building the same shaped buildings, monuments. And again, it could be something simple as like what you said. It maybe just works. But then we look at
they're all pointing to the same constellations, and
that's it. So we could say, well, yeah, that's because a pyramid works, and that's fine. But then why are they all using the same dimensions? Because if you take the pyramid from Egypt, the Great Pyramid in Giza, and you move that over to the Sun Pyramid, what the Mayans built, or the Aztecs, I think, it fits within like something stupid, like 1/4 of an inch. So who's giving these people these dimensions to build these things? I could understand if we just say, yeah, because a pyramid works, that's why they did it. But why are they all obsessed with the stars? And particularly, why are they all obsessed with Orion's belt? This is what fascinates me.
That's probably where they came from.
Yeah, I would agree. And like a lot of people talk about the Palladians and other species of alien that supposedly visits Earth and abducts people from Earth. They come from the constellation Pleiades. Again, if you look back through history, humans have been obsessed with that constellation for years and years and years.
So, okay, where did the idea of the Pleiadians come from? Because the way I always looked at it is that it came from the Billy Meyer story. Is that where that came from, or did it come from something before that? Because the Billy Meyer stuff has been debunked pretty well.
Yeah, no, there's been many accounts of the Palladians basically coming to Earth, interacting with humans from Earth, way before Billy Meyer's story came about. I can't think of a case in particular, but I know there has been many. It's one of the main places that people do talk about after being abducted is the Palladians. But they're again the Palladians as well. Like these cultures or these star people, whatever we want to call them, they seem to be like mixed race. Like you get a case like Travis Walton. Now, when Travis Walton was abducted, he was taken on board by these little grey creatures. But then later on during his abduction, he comes across these other people that look more human. And it's the same with the Palladians. People that talk about being abducted by the Palladians are talking about little grey creatures. But then they also talk about these beautiful people that have blonde hair and blue eyes and are 6 foot. And so what are these little grey aliens? Are they like robots? Are they like minions that do all the hard labour? that are sent to Earth to do the dirty work. Do you know what I mean? Like, it seems somehow like they're not super intelligent, powerful beings. They're kind of like the slaves that do all the hard labor for the intelligent beings.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I'm getting from it anyway, because of how they describe these people.
Yeah, I've heard similar things. Like they're not quite even that smart. The gray alien. There was a thing I heard about from the Mysterious Universe podcast where apparently Jimi Hendrix encountered alien beings one night.
Really?
Like some buddies, they were in a car and they encountered these alien creatures. I would look into that. It was very interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of celebrities out there now that are coming forward. Who was the other guy? There's a great documentary, Dan Aykroyd. Have you seen the documentary with Dan Aykroyd?
I saw a big interview he did on the internet talking about UFOs.
Yeah, Dan Aykroyd, he's seen UFOs. Robbie Williams, he's seen UFOs. There's many different celebrities and people in high positions that have seen UFOs now. So that's again why I say it's baffling to me that people don't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest question I think, like I've said to you again, is that once we get over the idea, do they exist, do they not exist, we can start concentrating on the real matters, like what do they want, where are they coming from, and put all our energy into thinking about questions like that.
I think a lot of people that don't believe they exist are probably people that are really tied up in other beliefs, like religious beliefs.
Yeah.
Or they don't want to accept anything other than what's written in the book.
Definitely. Have you ever heard of the Allagash Incident?
No, I don't think so.
This is a great one. So the Allagash Incident basically was a group of, I think, 4 or 5 school teachers, art students and things like that. And they'd gone on a long weekend fishing trip to the Allagash Lakes. And they were out there fishing on this little boat. They'd done a few nights fishing already. And then the 3rd or 4th night, something like that, they decided to build a big fire so that when they sat out in their boat, they can turn back and find their way back to camp. So they stacked this fire up, built it massive, like threw tons of logs on there. This thing was blazing. And they was out on the lake fishing. And one of the guys at the back of the boat reported seeing this light come out of the trees and hover above the canopy. And so he tells the other guys, they're all watching this thing. And it starts to come across the lake towards the boat. And it doesn't look like it's aware of them being there on the lake until one of the guys picks up a torch and shines it at the thing. And they all said that in a heartbeat, this thing just lit up the canoe like a Roman candle. As soon as their torch hit this object, this light came from it instantly and lit them up like a Roman candle. And they basically started to paddle away as fast as they could, and this thing was tracking them across the water. And the next thing they remember is they're back in their tents. The fire's burnt down. No, sorry, they're pulling out of the water, and the fire's burned down. It's just embers. None of them are really talking about what's happened or this light that came from the trees. They all just seem like really groggy and get into their tents and fall asleep. Well, weeks later, one of the guys starts having nightmares about this craft and these beings that came down into the water and took them aboard this ship. And he keeps having these reoccurring nightmares. And then he doesn't mention anything to the rest of the guys until however long after. But when he does, one of the other guys is like, oh my God, I've been having the same dreams. It's just a fascinating story. Basically, they were all abducted, taken onto this craft. And what happened is these little grey aliens got into the water at the side of the canoe and was trying to position them back as if they was fishing still in the boat. It's just such a bizarre thing, like to think about this. And one of the guys that had this memory, he said that I could see these little grey aliens and they were struggling with my weight. They were struggling to hold me up, and they were in the water waist deep, and they were trying to position me as if I was still in the boat fishing. That's just a bizarre thing, don't you think? Like that they consciously think about things like that.
That's a weird detail.
Yeah. He said that I remember like clear as day now, like looking at the side of the boat and seeing this creature wading waist deep in water, and they were struggling with me, trying to get me back in and trying to get me in a position where I looked like I was just fishing still. That's so strange.
That's creepy.
I know. Like, but yeah, it's an Allagash Incident. It's a really great case to look into. Yeah, so I was going to ask you, like, if you couldn't choose the Patterson gimlin footage, what would the next story be that you've ever heard regarding Bigfoot that makes you think, yeah, this thing is real? Like, what is the next best story that you've ever heard? Because obviously, I'm trying to like expand my horizons with Bigfoot. I've not really heard that much. Like Patterson gimlin, which everybody's heard, is about as far as I've gone.
That's a great question, especially because there's a lot of old encounters that a lot of people are now thinking are probably not true.
Yeah.
Like the really famous one, the Albert Ostman encounter where he was carried away in a sleeping bag.
Yeah.
There's people that suspect now that it's most likely not a true story because people have done lots of research on that guy himself. And people have tried to find the area where it happened, and a lot of what he said and what's in real life like doesn't really line up or make any sense. I don't know, as far as like footage goes, there's just nothing else like the Patterson footage, so it's hard to say. It's just there's these weird, like the weird stories that aren't really out on the internet are the ones that convince me more than anything. Like the stories that are floating around in the hunting and trapping community that don't really get out there. Those are the interesting ones. Like the people who don't really want to be public about it.
Yeah. I agree. What was the case where they're all hunkered up in the cabin and the cabin was being attacked? That was quite a good one.
Yeah, the Ape Canyon Incident. That was in that was near Mount St. Helens in Washington.
Yeah.
That one is interesting because there is documentation from that group of miners. Like there's a paper trail of information of them being there and then just like all of a sudden quitting and leaving the area and abandoning that spot right after that incident. There's actual documentation on that. So that's very interesting.
Did these people get like a clear view of these creatures? Like they saw them full there was no obstructions.
They saw them well enough. They saw one of them during the day and they shot it. They shot at it and it fell off a cliff. And then it was after that where they got attacked at night.
That is absolutely amazing, that story. I need to look into that. I never knew that they shot one. I never heard that bit before.
Yeah, that's basically what kind of started the incident is they encountered this thing during the day. And before that even they were hearing like weird noises and whistles and they figured something strange was going on. And then they actually saw it. They shot at it.
How many were they? Like how many did they say were attacking the cabin that night?
I don't think they really know. Probably anywhere from like 4 or 5 to a dozen. It could be anything like that.
And were they tracks and stuff there as well, outside the cabin?
There was tracks. There was areas like at the base of the building where they were actually trying to like dig underneath the cabin wall.
Oh no, that is just too scary. I couldn't handle that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And they know where the exact location.
They were trying to get into the cabin.
Yeah, they were trying to get these people.
Oh no,
yeah.
That gives me the heebie-jeebies.
But they know where the cabin like was. They know the exact location now.
And so when these guys went back like to the nearest town or whatever, is the documentation of what happened then? Did they speak to anybody else or?
They did speak to people. They brought people out there to investigate the site, and other people basically corroborated the fact that there was tracks there, and some crazy stuff went down.
Has anything in that area been seen since? Like, has anybody else, like even in the present day, like?
That whole area around Mount St. Helens is pretty famous for sightings, and like, there's even the stories from when Mount St. Helens erupted back in like the 80s of, you know, Sasquatch bodies being recovered. There's myths about that, and like the military, the government coming in and taking these bodies. It's very, very bizarre.
Yeah. So sorry, I'm just gonna write down what was that case called again with the guys in the cabin?
It's just called the Ape Canyon Incident.
Ape Canyon. I love anything like that. That fascinates me, especially the fact that there's multiple witnesses. We know this cabin existed, and like you said, it all started because of one of the guys shot one of these things. That makes sense. I can picture in my mind something like that happening. But what a terrifying experience. I never knew they were trying to dig under the cabin wall, and I never knew about the shooting at the start, so that's news to me. That sounds like a terrifying experience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Actually, you know how you're saying, you're asking me like what the next best thing is for me as far as evidence goes, other than the Patterson footage? I have to actually say it's definitely the Sierra Sounds. So the Sierra Sounds were a series of recordings that were recorded back in the 70s by a guy named Ron Moorhead.
Yeah.
So him and his buddies had this hunting camp in California in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And they would go to this camp every year, and eventually like they started hearing these bizarre vocalizations that almost sounded like a language of some sort. Different words and noises and screams. And they would get really close to the camp, and they actually ended up building like their own shelter out of logs that they could hide in and record these sounds from. So they would barricade themselves in this shelter, and these creatures would come close to the camp, and they would get these amazing audio recordings of them. I don't think they actually ever did see one, but they've had like language experts analyze it, and they're like, this is definitely like a language of some sort.
How far? So the noises are actually going back and forth in communication with each other.
Yeah, they're very weird. I'll send you some clips. I have some of the recordings.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I'm trying to build like my mental archive of all these things, because it does fascinate me, and I still am quite a newbie like when it comes to Bigfoot. But these things do fascinate me, especially the Ape Canyon, and now this one that you just talked about, the Sierra Sounds. So I'll definitely look into that. So the guys that recorded these sounds, then I wonder if the Bigfoot knew about this cabin then. If the sounds were so close, they must have known there was a cabin there. Did they never come close to it, or?
They knew they were there.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, the people would call out and yell at them, and they'd reply like,
oh wow, that's crazy.
And I trust Ron Moorhead. Like he's a very respectable guy, and I believe him.
Yeah. So when was this then? How long ago was this?
This was back in the 70s.
Yeah.
But they've also, at that location, they had also reported other weird things happening, like strange lights, strange noises that were different than like vocalizations. Like they would hear all kinds of weird sounds and see weird
can you imagine being out there in these places? It's like you on your last expedition. So let's picture you right now, with the beast in the north. You're out there camping, and you hear those vocalizations. Can you imagine how scary that would be? I know me and you talk about finding the one piece of footage that proves everything, but actually, if we was in that position, that must be so terrifying.
Oh yeah. He describes it as like, he would say like, we didn't know like if we were gonna make it out of there. Like we thought we would have to like shoot our way out, basically. Like they were pretty scary.
You can't even begin to imagine how scary that would be. Like, I always think to myself when I'm out there, I just want to capture something. I don't care what it is, whether it's a quick glimpse of something or a sound off in the distance. I want to capture something. But the minute that happened, and I say this all the time on my videos, I know me as a person, I would be terrified. And I'm not going to try and act brave like I wouldn't be. I'd be absolutely terrified because, for one, I spend a lot of time in the wild, and I'm familiar with most noises. Now, if I hear something that isn't familiar to me, it can only be a very slim number of things. Like, that must be so terrifying, especially if you're in an area that's renowned for Bigfoot sightings.
Yeah, you should. Have you seen the Missing 411 documentary?
Yeah, with David Paulide. I've not seen a documentary. I've heard some of the cases on podcasts and stuff.
there's the second documentary. I think it's called Missing 411: The Hunted.
Yeah.
You could probably find it online on like Amazon. Like you should watch it because at the end of that documentary, Ron is on it and they go over those sounds and what happened there. It's very well put together. You should definitely watch it.
Where's the location of that?
It's in California.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Sierra Nevada mountains.
Wow. I wonder what they were talking about. Like these Bigfoot that were screaming back and forth to each other. I wonder what was being said.
I don't know. But you have to hear it. You have to listen to it, man.
Justin, there's got to be something out there. Like I know it. All these people in these cases, like it can't be for nothing. Like you've just said with Ron, and we've got the other guy, the taxidermy guy. All these people seem so legit. There's got to be something out there. Why aren't we finding this? Like it's so frustrating. I really wish there was something we could do to like increase our chances.
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's probably like part supernatural.
Yeah, that is another theory, isn't it? That it is part supernatural.
It has like I don't know.
right now at this of the investigation, like into Bigfoot and the years that everybody's been looking for this thing, you have to start entertaining that idea because if it's not supernatural, why the hell aren't we finding it? Like, do you know what I mean? Why it's got to have something about it. I think anyway. I think if it turns up and it's a flesh and blood creature through and through, there's nothing special about it. It was just really good at hiding. That seems more unlikely to me than we're discovering some kind of. Do you know what I mean?
You also have to ask the question: is if it's a supernatural being, why would it have to like produce offspring, and why would there be juveniles?
Yeah, exactly.
It would have to be something that just exists kind of in between. Like it's a physical thing, but it slips him in and out of a reality or something. I don't know. Because like, why would a ghost wouldn't reproduce? You know, I don't know.
Yeah, and then when you say that, it now makes me think more of it being extraterrestrial, like more than supernatural, more extraterrestrial.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So it sounds to me like it's less supernatural and more extraterrestrial. Just because, like what you said there, like if it was supernatural, we wouldn't expect a ghost to reproduce. But yet, there's so many claims of people seeing these juveniles that we have to assume it is reproducing. So I'm fascinated by the whole topic. I'm fascinated by this whole idea of a creature that's undiscovered. I'm fascinated by the fact that we think it migrates, we think it has breeding patterns and behavioural patterns. This whole thing to me it makes me want to get out there more and more and more and look for any little bit of sign that I can, because I'd love to find a print, even something as simple as a print. For me, would be amazing. Like if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you know that nobody's been through that area and you come across a print, that's got to be all the validation you need for you personally. Not everybody else, not everyone would believe that, but for you personally, seeing that would surely be enough. I know it would be for me.
Yeah. It's definitely weird.
Yeah.
But you always just have more questions. Like the more you look into it, it just makes less and less sense.
Do you feel like you've ever been close to finding it? Like, has there ever been a time where you thought, in a minute, I'm going to see the real thing here? Like, this is getting serious.
Well, when I was investigating on that guy's property in the winter.
With the horse sound.
Yeah, but we heard that thing running. Yeah. I thought that was it right there, man.
So what did you hear running? Like, did you not see what this thing was, or was it off in the dark? I don't know.
It was off in the darkness, past the tree line, and kind of down. There was a slope that was probably like 20 feet high.
Yeah.
It was somewhere down there. There was down at the bottom of this slope was like a little ravine and like a creek. And so we heard this thing. It sounded like it was running up the slope towards us.
Oh.
And man, like I don't think I had ever been so freaked out.
See, that's not how I envisioned it. Like, so what you just told me there is quite new to me, because I didn't envision it being like that. I thought you was on some guy's ranch or farm, and I thought that the ground, the surrounding terrain was all flat. I didn't know
No.
there was like
Yeah,
that.
behind the guy's house, it's like a ravine. So there's this slope, and it goes down like 20 feet, 25 feet maybe.
Now,
And
when you
so,
say, was it running like as if you'd come to the top of this ridge and startled it and it was running away, or was it running as if it was already running for something, like chasing a deer or something, and you just overheard?
dude, we were measuring the track that was in the snow,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, we just heard something sounding like it was running towards us out of nowhere. And we had been like standing at the guy's house, like just listening for like an hour for anything, like intently, and didn't hear anything. Like it was just so random and out of nowhere. I don't know. It was the freakiest thing ever, and it sounded heavy and it was loud.
And if you had to say, I know it's difficult to say, but if you had to, would you say it was on 2 feet, 4 feet?
I'm pretty confident that it was on 2 feet.
Wow. And was this thing snapping through branches, through brambles, and like, no, just?
I just remember hearing the footsteps. Like I couldn't hear any branches breaking or anything like that.
And this is a guy on this property that's already reported having Bigfoot.
He said he saw it. Like he actually saw the creature crouched down in these bushes, not too far away from the house.
So is that what sent you there to investigate, because of the things that had been going on previously anyway?
His friend, he had a friend who first reached out to us, and it's like, yeah, like friend has these things on his property and he's freaked out or whatever. And so he had already had weird things going on. He had seen the creature, and then one night he called me and he's like, these things are here right now. There's like 2 of them or something. He said there was more than one. And it was like late at night, and I'm like, shit, like if I'm gonna see one, this is the time. Like I gotta go. So it was super late at night. I went out there and I'm like, this could be it. I might see one tonight.
Was your hat pounding at this time?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so did everybody else hear the running as well? Like everyone that was there with you heard the running at the same time as you heard it?
I was the only one who went out to investigate that night. So, because I'm about a half hour away from that guy's property.
You need to get back there. You need to go back to that property again and do some more videos there.
Well, he hasn't had anything weird happening since.
Maybe go down, like, would it be possible to go down into that ravine, like down the slope? You should go down there.
We did. The night I was there, we walked the whole property basically. We didn't see any horse, any signs of horse, any horse tracks. That was the weird thing. But that noise was for sure like from where the footsteps were.
Yeah.
And I picked it up on video, like you can hear it. It sounds like a horse. But the next, I think it was 2 days after, a couple other guys drove out to that location with me. Keenan was one of them. He's from a town that's like 3 hours away. He came to investigate, and then another guy from where I'm from came out with us, and we again did a investigation on the whole property. We walked down the ravine for quite a while, and there was no tracks of any like horse, or there wasn't even like Bigfoot tracks, like fresh Bigfoot tracks where we expected the being to have ran, like because we heard the footsteps and everything, but there was nothing. There was no disturbances there.
That is so freaky. That is so. And the fact that this guy, like I just asked you there if you should go back and do something, and you said, "Oh well, nothing's really happening no more." That adds to the validity for me, because this is obviously some guy who's just after the limelight. Like, do you know what I mean? He's not reporting things every week.
No, that guy was scared too. Like you could tell he was freaked out.
I think that was close. I think that was a close call.
But like that incident made it seem so supernatural because like there was a trackway that went like across this whole property. It looks like Sasquatch tracks. They were really far apart, and they went off in the direction of where that ravine is. But like when we investigated after we heard the footstep sounds, like there was no fresh tracks down there or anything. So it's like sometimes there's tracks and sometimes there's no tracks.
What was the brush like down the slope? Is it really thick? Can you walk through there with ease, or is it?
Yeah, for the most part. Like it's pretty thick, but it's not too bad.
What is the noise of the horse all about? Like, that's fascinating. Why a horse?
I don't know.
Was this thing trying to mimic a horse because it knows that that's a familiar sound to us, or had this thing caught a horse and it was dragging it through there? What is that about?
Either it's mimicking a horse or there was like a phantom horse. It sounds exactly like a horse.
What video is that on? I'm gonna have to double check that. What video was that on? I remember what.
Supernatural Sasquatch.
Yeah. That is absolutely an amazing experience, Justin. Like, honestly, I believe you had a close encounter there because, like you said, this guy, obviously, obvious question, but he doesn't have any horses on the property, does he?
There's no horses on his property or anywhere like near him. And like we walked the whole perimeter of the yard, and there's no for a horse to get in. It's all fenced in. The only way I'll run in is if it went through the front driveway, and we were there. So
yeah, and like out of every type of walk or run there is, a horse is the most distinctive. Like, you can't mistake a horse run. So you would have known if it was a horse running away, and you said it wasn't. So yeah, that's very interesting.
Then the weird thing was that like after we heard the footsteps, we were just like standing there frozen, just like freaked out listening. And then I yelled out hello, and after I yelled hello, that's when it made the sound.
Oh no, I can't handle this. So, was you guys talking about this after for a long time? Like, you must have all been like adrenaline going and chatting amongst yourselves about what you thought it was.
He's like, dude, like, I haven't seen a horse in this area since I moved in to this like little farm.
Wow, that is insane. You need to get back there. Like, honestly, you need to. I know the guy says that he's not having no experiences, but there must be a reason why that thing went through that way or used that area.
I don't know.
Who knows? Like this thing could have maybe dragged a horse from somewhere else, and you startled it, and it was trying to pull that. Or it could have been mimicking a familiar sound. Like, it knows humans.
We would have seen horse tracks.
Yeah, 100%.
Somewhere, like the horse wouldn't have just appeared there. I don't know. None of it makes sense. That's the weird thing about it.
That does not make sense. Such a shame that you didn't get a visual, like you didn't get a chance to see this thing.
No, thank God, because I was already freaking out too much.
The moment you heard this sound of a horse, like, it wasn't a case of did I hear that, didn't I hear that? You clearly heard this sound. That must have been.
It's recorded. It's in the video.
That's so good as well that the audio picked it up, because 9 times out of 10 in these situations the audio doesn't do that, does it?
I'm disappointed though, because like before that happened, I was packing up my stuff to leave. I was gonna get out of there because it was pretty late. So I had my camcorder. I put it in my car, and I'm getting ready to like leave, and the guy's like, "We should go take the tape measure and just measure that track and see how long it is." So it's like, well, I'll come back tomorrow. We can do it tomorrow because it's like late. He's like, "Oh, let's just do it now." Like, fine. So we go to measure the track. I left my camcorder in the car, which I had running like pretty much the whole time I was there. If I would have just held on to it a bit longer and brought it with me to the track where we were measuring it, I would have recorded the footsteps.
And so I have to ask this question. Obviously, I know that you're a good judge of character. Like, when you deal with these people day in, day out, you get to know who's lying, who's not. This guy was definitely legit. Like, he wasn't trying to pull no pranks.
No, he was scared, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, such a great experience. Like, and I love hearing you retell it, because it's one of them where it makes me excited about the phenomena again. Like, it makes me intrigued. Like, you obviously heard something, and it doesn't make sense what you heard at all. I love that. That gets me excited about this phenomena all over again. It's fascinating.
I have some footage. I went in the guy's house when I first got there, and we were talking, and he didn't know I had the camera running. I just had set up the camera, I put it on his counter, and I had the mic running. I was just recording our conversation. I'm like pretty confident he's legit, just because like off camera, the stuff he was talking about it just seemed real, I guess.
Yeah, like you'll do this yourself. Like you'll be able to relate to this. But whenever I'm out in these places, for example, the North Yorkshire Moors, where I spend a lot of time now investigating, because that is a place where people do report things like wildmen sightings and UFOs. There's times when I get there and I think, nah, there's nothing here. Like it's a beautiful place. I understand that. It's great to get out here, and yeah, you could probably imagine something happening here, but I never see anything. But then there's times when I think I can honestly, I feel like a certain way. Like I feel, or I can imagine why something happened there. It's just I can't explain it. It's so bizarre, and it's them moments that keep my interest going, because you do have the off days where you think, nah, there's nothing to it. It's a load of crap. And then there's other days where you think, actually, like, how many people can be lying about the same thing? Like, do you know what I mean? And it's them moments that fascinate me and keep me going.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it.
You do have moments where like you question it and you question yourself and you question people's validity. But then again, like I say, I've experienced things in my life that are strange, and I just think, well, why is it that they couldn't have experienced? I mean, there's hundreds of people that talk about this wild man, and they see him living like rummaging through like foliage and living off the land, and just vanishes mysteriously. Like they try to go see this person or whatever, and then all of a sudden they can't follow his tracks, or he's not there. He's 1 minute he's there and he's not. It's very similar to the Sasquatch and the Bigfoot phenomenon, but much smaller, much more human-like. And people see this, and there has been times where I think they can't have seen this. Like it doesn't make no sense. But then it doesn't make sense that hundreds of people are seeing it. So that's why I keep doing it. It's fascinating.
It is. And people see other weird things too. Like that's the crazy thing, is it's not just Bigfoot. There's other weird things people are encountering as well. Skinwalker. Things.
Yeah. This whole idea of mimicking sounds as well, like, scares me. I find that quite creepy.
I find it's creepy, but at the same time, for me, it's hard to like believe, because it seems like a cheap way to like back up that happening. Do you know what I mean? Like if someone hears or records a weird noise,
yeah,
people say, "Oh, it's this animal," but then it seems like a cheap way to like say that it's a Sasquatch. Like, oh, it's mimicking another animal. Like, you know what I mean?
The noise on its own wouldn't stand for anything, but the noise along with other things as well, like tracks and other things, would have more believability for me anyway. Yeah, dude, honestly, you're gonna find something soon. You're gonna pick up a sound. You're gonna see something strange. I think you should just keep plugging away, because I watch your videos and I think that you keep doing that enough times, something's gonna happen.
It could take my whole life, though.
I don't think it will. I think that you're gonna be in the right time at the right place. I think that about me as well, though. Like when I'm out there, I think the same. There's times where I go out and I think any minute now I'm going to see something. I feel really on edge. I feel like there's something watching me, and like any minute now I'm going to pick up a sound or I'm going to see something. Never materializes, but I think one day, because we are in the right place at the right time, it will do.
I hope so.
It will do. I mean, these stories have been going around way before we existed. It's not like we turned up, started making YouTube videos and made these stories up. This is a phenomenon that's a lot older than me and you, so there's got to be something behind.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate, as I always say, to talk to you. I love getting these opportunities where we sit down and we chat about the things that we love to talk about. So let's not leave it too long before we do this again, because it's been great.
We always say that.
We do. But UK's in lockdown now, mate. So whenever you're free to chat, just give me a text, and then we'll jump on Skype again and do this all over again. Because, like I said, it is fascinating. I'm always coming up with new things and theories as well. Like I always read stuff, and no doubt you do as well. And I always I do this thing now where I read something or I see something online, and I always think, oh man, I wonder what Justin would think. I need to text Justin and tell it to her. I always feel like this now. So yeah.
All right.
So yeah, been a pleasure, mate, as always. Like I said, take it easy, look after yourself.
Yeah, you too. Stay safe.
Yeah, I will do, dude. I can't not be safe really now. I'm locked inside until lockdown's over. So
Yeah.
but in time, dude, please, like I said, look after yourself, stay in touch, and we'll do this again soon.